Hello everyone. Have you ever wondered what actually happens to household wastewater when there is no central sewer system connected to your home? Today we are going to explore engineered septic ecosystems and understand how this clever biological system safely treats and recycles wastewater completely off the grid. An engineered ecosystem harnesses the power of biological digestion to safely collect, treat, and recycle household wastewater in the absence of central sewerage. This system works quietly underground using natural biological processes rather than complex machinery to protect both public health and the environment. Let us understand where these systems make the most strategic sense for decentralized sanitation. Septic tank systems represent the optimal zone when there is high water usage intensity but limited access to central infrastructure. The ideal demographics for this system include single households, grouped dwellings, and institutions like hospitals or schools. The usage profile requires high water use systems that support flushing and anal cleansing needs. And the economic reality is that septic systems are significantly cheaper, quicker, and easier to provide and maintain compared to large scale sewage works. When it comes to architectural layout, these systems must prioritize uninterrupted function. Using one massive tank disrupts the entire system during maintenance, which is a serious design flaw. Instead, parallel medium tanks are recommended since a standard double chamber configuration facilitates sludge removal without requiring a complete system shutdown. This double chambered configuration is the standard, and adding more than two chambers only increases expense without providing any real operational advantage. For network engineering, sewers connecting latrines to tanks require manholes at every 100 meters and at every change of direction. Now let us look at the strict engineering specifications that dictate tank capacity. The capacity base requires 20 to 30 gallons or 2.5 to 5 cubic feet per user, with a minimum overall capacity of 500 gallons, typically measured as 3 meters by 3 meters. The total depth of the tank ranges from 1.5 to 2 meters or 5 to 7 feet, with an optimal liquid depth strictly maintained at 1.2 meters or 4 feet. The bottom of the tank has a sloping design directed towards the inlet to facilitate solids retention. A strong concrete slab covers the tank, featuring circular manholes that cannot allow a person to fall into the tank, along with wire gauze screened aeration shafts. A minimum airspace of 30 centimeters or 12 inches is maintained between the liquid level and the concrete cover. The inlet and exit pipes are submerged and trapped to ensure proper flow. This entire purification process follows a sequential two-stage timeline. Stage 1 happens inside the tank, where anaerobic digestion takes place, separating solids and beginning the initial organic breakdown. This stage requires a 24-hour retention period. Systems must be engineered for exactly this duration, since too long a period causes undue septicity, while too short a period provides insufficient treatment. Stage 2 happens outside the tank, in the subsoil, where aerobic oxidation completes the final mineralization process entirely underground. Let us look closer at what happens during stage 1 inside the watertight tank. Three distinct layers form during this process. At the top, the scum layer contains lighter solids, grease, and fat that rise to the surface, and methane gas bubbles rise through this layer. In the middle, the effluent layer is a partially digested colloidal solution, carrying bacteria, cysts, and an offensive smell. At the bottom, the sludge layer forms as solids settle, where anaerobic bacteria and fungi attack and break down the solids into simpler compounds, massively reducing the overall sludge volume. Now let us look at stage 2, where the effluent gets mineralized in the subsoil. First, dispersion occurs, where partially digested effluent is dispersed through open jointed pipes laid in trenches 90 centimeters or 3 feet deep which are then covered with soil. Second, bacterial attack takes place, where millions of aerobic bacteria in the upper soil layers attack the organic matter present in the effluent. Third, complete oxidation follows, where organic matter is fully oxidized into stable, odorless end products, including nitrates, carbon dioxide, and water, and these minerals are absorbed by nearby plants. Fourth, we consider pathogen fate, where most pathogens die during this aerobic treatment. However, cysts and helminthic ova, which are intestinal parasites, do survive, but they remain safely trapped within the soil. Let us compare these two stages side by side within what we call the biological matrix of purification. Stage 1, anaerobic digestion, takes place in a watertight masonry tank environment, operating without oxygen. Its primary action involves separation, partial digestion, and sludge volume reduction, and its end products are stable sludge, scum, methane gas, and an offensive colloidal liquid. Stage 2, aerobic oxidation, takes place in open jointed subsoil trenches that are 90 centimeters deep, operating with oxygen present. Its primary action involves complete oxidation and environmental mineralization, and its end products are nitrates, carbon dioxide, clean water, and minerals that are absorbed directly by plants. Proper commissioning and protection of the bacterial flora is essential for these systems to function correctly. When commissioning a new system, newly built tanks must first be filled with water up to the outlet level, then seeded with a bucket full of ripe sludge from an already active tank to introduce the correct decomposing bacteria. For minimum hydration, the ecosystem requires a steady flow to function properly, and a strict minimum of 25 liters of water per day per user must enter the tank. For flora protection, ordinary household soap in normal amounts is safe for the system. However, excess soap, water, and chemical disinfectants like phenol are highly injurious to the bacterial flora and must be strictly avoided. Physical upkeep of these tanks requires strict depth monitoring. The desludging rule states that undue accumulation reduces capacity and interferes with biological working. So, desludging should happen when solids occupy between 1/2 and 2/3 of the total liquid depth, which typically happens every 1 to 2 years. For the extraction method, removal by vacuum cleaner is considered the most satisfactory method, and any baled out sludge must be disposed of safely through trenching. Routine inspection is also necessary. Ensuring regular checks confirm there are no blockages at the submerged inlet or outlet and that circular cover slabs remain securely in place at all times. To bring this all together, sustaining an engineered ecosystem depends on three key pillars. The first pillar is design, requiring double-chambered, adequately sized tanks of at least 500 gallons, securely covered and engineered for exactly 24-hour retention. The second pillar is biology, representing a seamless partnership between anaerobic digestion, which handles sludge reduction inside the tank, and aerobic oxidation, which handles complete mineralization in the soil. The third pillar is maintenance, which is sustained by protecting the sensitive bacterial flora from harsh chemicals and strictly adhering to the 1/2 to 2/3 capacity desludging rule. Hope you have understood about engineered septic ecosystems. Thank you.